Well, I see that Tesla stock closed today at $274. Well, I think it was well over that a year ago, or a little bit over a year ago for sure. Then it went all the way down. I remember in January of this year, January of 2023, just 6 months ago, it went down to $100. And make sure I don't get in an accident here. Traffic slowing down on the Oklahoma Turnpike. It was down to $100, and there's this extreme loser who's one of the most overrated guys in finance named Bill Miller, and he was on CNBC, which I don't watch, but I saw a clip of it. And he was saying, like, the first week of January, I shorted it, and I shorted more today, and I'm going to short more again if it goes up. He is so wrong about everything. He said at the time, you got to understand that Tesla doesn't have any debt. They for sure don't have any net debt. They have billions in cash, and they're profitable. And then, when I went to check my mail in Santa Monica a couple months ago, I was just walking down Ventura Boulevard, which is over in the valley. It's a main street. And Sheryl Crow's song. Now, that's Santa Monica Boulevard, but whatever. I knew that. So I'm telling you, I walked up to the store from my hotel and walked back, and it seemed like every car was a Tesla. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say that every other car was a Tesla on that whole strip. I'm talking about like a mile long walk. It's unbelievable. And so it's a powerful company. Of course, they were bashing them. And so even Google, I remember Google went down to $90 in January of this year. And I almost switched into a big investment that I have switched into Google at that time. Because there was talk like, well, Google, antitrust this. And then Microsoft came out with the AI, artificial intelligence, which is there's no such thing as artificial intelligence because it's all computer driven, and the human has the input. Nothing can think on its own other than a sentient being. So it's just a new buzzword. I mean, it's an advanced computing system is what it is. But like Google has all the data in the world, so they're going to eventually figure that out. And so the last I checked last week, Google was like 130 and it was down to 90 in January. But back to Tesla. So Tesla had been $300 or $400 just roughly a little over a year ago, and it went all the way down to 100 in January, and now it's 274, and we're just past mid-June. So it's just amazing how, like, when you think about the narratives of anything in life, how like the narrative is generally you want to be on the other side of the narrative, whatever the consensus is. If the world and the media is bashing a really good company or a really good football team for that matter, that football team is probably better than the bashing, and the company's certainly better than the bashing. And then you'll see it on the other side, on the upside. A good company will get overhyped, and that's probably what Tesla was when it was at its all-time highs under 2 years ago. At some point you can pay way too much for a company, but whenever you see, you got to keep your eyes open, keep your on the boots on the ground approach. Like when I was walking down Ventura Boulevard, I'm telling you, every car was a Tesla. I mean, that's just like parked, right? So like all over the streets, all over everywhere, driving all over the United States, all the electric vehicles are Teslas. And so like this Bill Miller idiot, he used to manage funds for Legg Mason or Legg Mason, whatever the hell it is. But his claim to fame is like, for 15 years, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, he beat the S&P, 15 years ago, he beat the S&P 500. But, the moment that he put on that hat, he basically lost it all in 2008. And just wrong on everything. He was buying Countrywide, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Bank of America, everything, AIG, everything that went down 95 to 100%, he bought and went down in flames. He just doesn't quite understand the game. He does this back of the envelope calculations. Like he was saying in January about Tesla, he said, well, I don't think Tesla is worth more than all the other United States car makers combined, like the Ford, General Motors, etc. But what he doesn't understand is, yes, it is. Those companies aren't even real companies. They're zombie companies. They have mountains of debt, tens and tens and tens and tens of billions of debt each, and they're just basically, the General Motors shareholders got wiped out 15 years ago. those aren't even real companies. They just exist to, for bondholders. And the only reason Ford never went to zero is because, the founding family still has shares. But, it's a joke of a company. But there are certain companies that are kind of like going to be around for close to forever, like Ford and General Motors and that, just for the sake of, you got to have cars on the road and they use up that labor. People have to work and they use up the labor. And so, but Tesla, 274 down in January during all the doom and gloom, they were coming out and people were shorting it, right, at the lows. No one came on and said, like, I'm just telling you right now that you should buy a Tesla. Like, during the so-called, whatever the hell, the financial crisis of 2008, the Great Recession, or whatever they want to call it. It's all bullshit. But anyways, like, the Dow went, like, in about a year and a half, it went from like 14,800 in 2006 or 2007 all the way down to 6,500 in March of 2009. And nobody at the lows there under 7,000 was talking, you ought to load up in stocks. They were like, all right, well, you got to be careful here. You might want to hold on some cash. Even the genius Jim Cramer, CNBC clown show, he was like, oh, you need to have enough cash for 5 years. And you just got to think for yourself. And when you get these extreme things happening on the upside or the downside, the truth is somewhere in the middle, but you want to get on the exact opposite of the bullshit narrative, which is just a lazy thinking narrative. Like, Tesla's a monster company. I mean, this Bill Miller had the nerve to say in January, I didn't buy Tesla, I should have, but obviously hindsight's 2020, but he had the nerve to say that Tesla's losing market share. Everything he said was wrong. Well, of course they're losing market share. Well, like a couple years ago, they had 100% of the market. So of course you're going to be losing. They were the original one, so of course you're going to be losing market share. And he says, well, General Motors and Ford, they're coming out with electric vehicles too, and the competition in China or whatever. Like, people don't understand how monstrous this Tesla is, and it's a cult. It has a cult following, so that's probably why it can go from 100 to 274 in just 6 months. That's a pretty strong move for a big company. So the market cap went from 300 or 400 billion back up to close to, we're pushing $1 trillion probably. But I shouldn't say I don't own it. But just an interesting thing that you just remember that, like, anyone that you could possibly see on TV talking about anything investment wise, by definition, is a moron, and they're full of shit, and they're just talking their book, so to speak, like, where they're just trying to spin things. Other than Warren Buffett. Now, Warren Buffett is probably trying to spin things as well, but basically every word and every sentence he utters has some insight behind it. And I would argue Charlie Munger, his right-hand man, as well. Of course, Charlie Munger, I ended up getting into Alibaba because I drank the Kool-Aid, the Munger, the cult of personality. And the moment I wanted to play safe and buy a big company into something like that, so I bought Alibaba too high about a year and a half ago. But I made a little bit of money buying on the lows, bought some options last year when it was in the 60s and sold them and made a lot of money, pretty good money. But I'm still down on the stock, the Alibaba. But it's interesting how they were bashing Google and Tesla at the start of the year, and here Tesla 274 every day. It just appears to go higher and higher. Well, now, people are loving it now. You got the comfort of the crowd. 274, they're probably holding hands and buying, right? What is safe now? Things are going great. Well, at $100, it was a lot safer. You know what I mean? Like, at 274, it's a lot riskier and scary. At least that's how I would view it. Most people have it the exact opposite. You got the animal spirits when the outlook's good and the price is high, and that's safe to people, but it's the exact opposite. It's a lot more safe at 100 6 months ago than it is at 274 6 months later at the current price in June of 2023. But that's really not how people like to pile in at the all-time highs. And so that thing could go to 400 or it could reverse. You don't know. Nobody knows. But I know one thing. If they start bashing a great company like Google or Tesla, especially Google, then maybe one day they'll even start bashing Apple. But you can back up the truck. I mean, you got to know what you own. You got to make sure there's nothing you're missing. But if you can get a great company that's going to be around, these companies will be around for 100 years. Google, Apple. I mean, I don't know. I think Tesla will probably be around for a long, long time. Maybe, 100 years. Who knows? Probably. Who knows? But 100 years is a long time to be making predictions, so I won't go that far. I would say that Google, if the world is around in 100 years, I'd say Google would be around in 100 years, and I'll even say Exxon as well. People might argue about Exxon, but I think they're wrong. It's basically the number one stock in the history of the market. It's the original Standard Oil. Getty Oil, right? John Paul Getty? Or am I getting the names wrong? Who knows? What was that, Rockefeller? Whatever. The original Standard Oil. John Rockefeller, I think, the original Standard Oil. And Getty was the guy. He bought low at during the 1929 collapse. Someone in the Getty family bought a bunch of stock. They convinced like the purse holder of all the money to kind of load up, and they bought like a little bit of everything. At least that's the story that Buffett told. All right, let's rock and roll. Moving on. That's the Tesla update.